Okay, so this morning, I posted the Turnitin book review assignment on Canvas. Okay, they have an option where you can download files or upload files that are not necessarily like Word, Microsoft Word. I think you're going to be able, if you did a PowerPoint upload, be able to upload it to Turnitin. Okay, I posted the enrollment key and the class ID number on the assignment. I think you should be able to just click on the link on Canvas and be able to do it. Okay? Yeah. If for Turnitin, I've never done it from your end, but I think it's pretty easy. You guys did it last semester. So I think it's pretty self. Yeah, I posted the code. Yeah. MLA is fine. Double space. If you quote the book, write the page number. Okay. If you quote another source, do a works cited. Okay, and put that in there. And footnote. No, it's never a bad idea though.
Or like cite it. We have to cite the book.
No, I don't need you to write do a citation for that. Yes.
On the double entry, if we also did a quote, we need a page.
From the book?
Yeah, because I just.
Not necessarily. You're in the chapter that you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. If you're handwriting your double journal, take pictures of it. I wouldn't do it on Turnitin. Send me an email or on Canvas. Any other questions? Okay, I don't know if you noticed I changed the date.
Sunday night.
Sunday night?
You are so kind.
Yes. Well, I'm only like.
I know. You got people that aren't even that far.
Yes. Yeah, true.
Because I've been doing this a while. So listen, why did I move the date? Because I want them to be good.
I feel like you always say it earlier.
Yes.
So that way he doesn't have to move it back from the date
He actually wanted them. So he really wanted them.
I didn't see myself doing any grading Saturday or Sunday. So I'm like, I'm not, because I'm going to Chinook to watch Jack pitch. So, I'm not going to do any grading. So I'll give you another day.
Thank you.
Okay? You're welcome.
Where are you going on Saturday?
Jack's throwing Sunday instead of today. Because today stinks. Now they're getting quite a bit of snow in the northern part of the state.
Madison had 7
We're
inches
supposed to
Who-
get,
7?
in Manhattan.
it's supposed to snow tonight from like
Yeah.
6 o'clock to.
It says 30%,
Yeah.
like for 6, 7 hours.
I mean, Coach Swords knew that.
So, and it's awful outside.
Six.
Ugh, yesterday was awful. And today's like
It's just
way
the
too
mindset.
long.
Sorry, that came out.
Okay, that's right.
I was personally cold in my mindset.
Because you didn't move. You sat there.
I moved a little bit.
Okay. So yesterday, before I was interrupted by the United States Navy, at your request, Sir, you're right. They're going down the hallway. Well, let me go get them.
Dad.
Okay. They're nice people. Yeah, and I really do. Yeah.
Did you teach a girl?
I don't think I had her. I don't think I had her. But I knew her because she dated one of my baseball players. And I watched the two of them play catch on the baseball field, the boyfriend and girlfriend. And I'm like, she's a stud. Yeah. So, I mean, she was a really good softball player. And she ended up, she played 4 years. Yeah, so cool. Anyhow, yesterday I was talking, did I write down the 5th column?
Yeah. No.
Wait, are you talking about the 5th column where they used Nazi parties and all the other?
No.
Yeah, so while we're talking about the American Nazi Party, might as well talk about the British Nazi Party and the one in Denmark, and the one in Belgium, and the one in France, okay, because there was a Nazi party in all of these countries when Hitler invaded them, okay, and that was on purpose, okay. What the Nazis would do by setting up a fifth column, this is something the Romans did. So when the Romans expanded their empire, it makes it easier to take over a country or a territory when you have support built in already. The other thing the fifth column does is it causes problems. It creates instability within a government. So if you have a lot of riots and protests and stuff like that, it makes a government weak or appear weak and easier for takeover. And so the Germans employed the fifth column in many of the European countries they would invade. Okay, softening up the enemy before they invaded. Another thing that the Germans did, pretty much every country they invaded, they signed a non-aggression pact with them beforehand, agreeing that they would not invade. Yes. So if you signed a non-aggression pact with Germany, chances are you were going to get invaded. Okay. So a lot of the propaganda coming out of Russia today is, like he's trying to denazify the Ukraine. Yeah, like this is a neo-Nazi government in the Ukraine that they're trying to overturn. Yes, Zelensky is Jewish. It's just propaganda. Okay. Some of his people? Yeah. Alex, what do you think that the U.S. government has told us in the last 15 years, name a few things, that people in this country believe that really is probably not as bad or as true as they say it is? I got a few.
Yeah, I'm only thinking in the last. Weapons of mass destruction.
Okay, we went to war in Iraq over weapons of mass destruction, and that they were working actively with Al Qaeda, our enemy. I'm not going there. Okay, all right. No. I'm not going there. Okay, so this is interesting. There was a group called America First. Okay, and this is interesting because this is a term that President Trump used a lot, was America First. Okay, and so America First Committee was a group of Americans that wanted to stay out of the war. Okay, but it becomes more active as you get later in the war. Especially when Britain is attacked. Okay, or when Britain is threatened by Germany. Among people in this America's First Committee is Charles Lindbergh. Okay, so Charles Lindbergh, and another one is a guy named Joseph Kennedy, who's the patriarch of the Kennedy clan. Joseph Kennedy was the U.S. ambassador to Great Britain. Okay, when Germany begins to threaten Britain. Well, Joseph Kennedy doesn't think the United States should help Britain. So we had to remove him as ambassador to Britain. Okay, Charles Lindbergh, who is obviously a pioneer in aviation, yes? Well, German aviation, once they released the fact that they were actually building planes, because they weren't allowed to under the Treaty of Versailles, Charles Lindbergh had close relationships with German flyers, German aeronautical engineers, and so forth, because the German Air Force was producing state-of-the-art aircraft that meant some were used in the Spanish-American War and so forth. And Lindbergh was a supporter of the Germans. And so this ruined many people's opinion of Charles Lindbergh. Okay, he was part of this Americans First Committee. All right. So, you got the country is mostly here. This is where most of the population is. Okay. You have some that appreciate what the Nazis are doing, some that don't want war for any reason, okay, some that don't like the idea of fighting what was recently their homeland. Okay, so you've got a mishmash here, but B is where most Americans are. Okay, we're going to dig into that a little bit. We're talking about neutrality here. So if the United States cannot take sides, then we'll stay out of it. Okay, there's a problem that we have coming down the pike here, and that's Japan. Japan, as you can see, is expanding further and further into China as we go. Now, you see this dotted line? This dotted line is the furthest expansion of the Japanese Empire during the war. So this takes us into 1944, roughly, okay? We have a territory now in the South Pacific called the Philippines. We have an American naval base there. We have a lot of American civilians living, working in the Philippines. Not to mention our military personnel in the Philippines. Well, if the Japanese are going to continue to expand their empire, it would make sense for them to attack the Philippines, yes? So this, of course, concerns the U.S. Congress in 1934. They are going to pass what's called the Tidings-McDuffie Act, which says to the world, which says to Japan, says to the Philippines, that we are going to leave the Philippines in 12 years. We're going to grant the Philippines their independence, and they will be on their own. So basically, we're asking the Japanese not to do what for 12 years? Don't attack the Philippines. We will leave eventually. Well, I'm going to, spoiler alert. On December 7th, 1941, the same day that Pearl Harbor is attacked in Hawaii, the Philippines will be attacked. Wake Island will be attacked. Malaysia will be attacked, where Singapore is. It will be a coordinated attack throughout the South Pacific by the Japanese, all on December 7th. Okay. Now, looking at this in retrospect, you might construe the Tidings-McDuffie Act as a form of what? Of appeasement, which is something you will be writing about on the test. And you will need to cite examples of appeasement, which, if you don't remember, is the principle of giving up your principle in order to avoid conflict. The Spanish Civil War starts in 1936. We've already discussed that. And the laws that are passed preventing the United States, Neutrality Acts, preventing the United States from sending weapons of war to belligerent nations. Nations that are at war. We're not going to get involved. We're going to stay neutral. Right now, there are an estimated 20,000 Canadian and American veterans that have traveled to the Ukraine to fight. Under this Neutrality Act, that would be illegal. In fact, guys, the first person to die, first American to die in World War II, be an American civilian flying for the Royal Air Force. Now, that was illegal. So what Americans did, especially pilots, civilian pilots, they would go to Canada, get fake passports, declaring them a Canadian citizen. Then they would go to Britain, join the Royal Air Force during the year of 1940. Okay? And some of these pilots were like famous people. Now, Charles Lindbergh didn't do that. We know that. But one of them was an American bobsledding gold medalist in the 36 Olympics. And a pilot. And he died flying for the Royal Air Force. Okay. Everybody with me? So when we talk about these neutrality acts, they are going to evolve throughout the 1930s. This is the early part. As we get closer and closer to war, these neutrality acts will evolve, drawing us a little bit closer into conflict. Okay? Because we do have friends in the world, and we want to support those friends. It's kind of like we're trying to do with Ukraine right now. We're trying to support them, okay, without getting involved. We are not neutral in that conflict right now, obviously, right? But to this point, we're not getting involved militarily. I talked yesterday about the Russian MiGs in Poland? That's not going to happen. Poland has some MiG-29s. We can replace those if they give them to Ukraine, but we're not going to. Okay, so 1937, neutrality. We're going to allow some sales of weapons to belligerent nations at war, okay? But here's how it works. Cash and carry only. You bring your ships to our shores. You load those weapons onto your ships. You pay cash, and you can take those weapons home with you. We will sell you planes. We will sell you guns. We'll even sell you tanks. But we won't sell you the bullets for those guns, the shells for those tanks, or the bombs for those planes. Because, guys, guns don't kill people. Bullets kill people. And if we're not selling them American bullets, then we're still neutral. Get it? No munitions. Only weapons.
I bet I could kill you with that metal rod.
You could still kill someone with a gun.
Can you
I'm not
just
saying
kill someone with just a gun?
with one bullet you could kill someone. Yes.
No,
You
with
need
just
a gun.
a bullet.
No, just the bullet. You don't
Yes,
have the gun.
you could. Yeah,
How?
you could. You
Can-
can still set off
can
the
you-
round without a gun.
Is it as easy?
Yeah,
can
but
shove
you
it
can
in
still do
and
it.
out.
Or I can
Have you
still-
seen Saving Private Ryan? At the end where they're taking those,
mortar rounds?
hitting them on the metal plate, throwing.
I'm in US history, or US movies and
Oh, you're in that?
Yeah.
What are you guys watching right now? Okay. Good.
I'm not gonna lie, I sleep through a lot of it.
Saving Private Ryan, you can't sleep.
Because I wanted out of painting.
It's fun, Alex. As you should.
Painting two.
I don't blame you a bit.
I took painting one and I thought painting two was.
So what's your favorite movie so far?
I really liked the Hitler thing. That like,
Downfall?
no, it was called Hitler.
Okay.
It was like a made for TV thing. She
Okay.
said she got it from you. So like when you were explaining like Hitler's
Swing Kids?
no, it was just called Hitler.
Okay. Huh?
So that one was, I didn't sleep through that one. And I'm liking 42. I've seen it before, but I
Yeah. Well, it's probably very helpful in this class.
It is. Because I like
Saving
pictures.
Private Ryan.
Yes. I was gone for like the first part of that movie.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad, it's really bloody.
Yeah, the very beginning.
Yeah.
The first 30
Oh, we'll
minutes-
watch it in here, so don't worry. You don't have to stay in.
Oh, it always is
I
like
mean,
stomach
it's not
drops.
like-
I always give the option for people to not watch it. Because it's extremely violent. Okay. Isolationists thought they had a law that would help our friends, but keep us out of war. And then, guys, isolationists pushed for a constitutional amendment that would require a popular vote to declare war. Now, if we're going to send our sons, our daughters, our dads, our moms, our brothers, and our sisters off to die in a foreign land, shouldn't it be the American people that choose whether we do that or not? Now, under the Constitution, who decides?
The president.
Just Congress.
Congress declares war. The president is the commander-in-chief and can use the armed forces, yes? But something this big, you would need Congress to do. At least you think so. So, should it be the American people that decide or Congress? Now, prior to us talking about the Ukraine over the previous month or so, if I were to give you a blank map, how many of you would be able to find Ukraine on a map? Okay, well, yeah.
I did like 3 guesses. I think I could. Ukraine's pretty like big, easy. Yeah, it's not like one of the small ones.
So, like when President Kennedy was talking about Vietnam in 1961, he actually brought a map to talk to the American people, to show the American people where it was. Because most people had no idea where Vietnam was. After all, it had been called French Indochina for decades prior. Okay? So, listen. This is a horrible idea. Oh, so we're going to throw together a popular vote tomorrow to decide whether we're going to go to Ukraine or not? Now, we've been talking a lot about Ukraine. It's been all over the news. But I have students in my classes that haven't been paying attention to me or the news, that are freaking clueless, Michael. And do we want these people getting the vote for whether we go to war or not? Right. Well, listen, if people get upset, this is the mob. You know, when people get mad, maybe they say, let's go to war when maybe we shouldn't go to war.
Rather than being. Like, we can prevent Congress from.
Okay, well, they have polls for that. Yeah, I know. But still, listen, I think this is a terrible idea. 75% of Americans supported this amendment. But you know who didn't support this amendment? Congress, and they weren't going to propose it, okay? And you could try a convention of the states, which, by the way, failed in the Kansas House of Representatives yesterday.
What?
Goes back up on the board. Have to wait till next year.
Should recruit.
I sent the link to all the teachers in my department so that they could contact their legislatures and show support for it. I don't know if any of them did it. But it's passed the state house before. It's just failed in the state senate. It didn't even pass the state house this year. We're going backwards. Okay. There's 2 ways to propose an amendment.
All the state legislators?
2/3 of both houses of Congress, which all 27 have been proposed that way. A convention of the states. But you need 2/3 of the states to send delegates like they did for the Constitutional Convention in 1787. Send delegates to Philadelphia for purposes of proposing constitutional amendments. You need 2/3 of the states. Right now, there are 18 states that have agreed to do that. Kansas is not one of them.
Oh,
That's a crazy.
why didn't we vote?
Dude, I don't, you know, they're worried about, they talk about a runaway convention, okay, where like they add all these extra amendments and do stupid things. Well, listen, it takes 3/4 of the states to ratify one of these amendments. You're not going to get some crazy amendment passed through 3/4 of the states. It's silly to think that would happen. Yeah.
Who like our state decided to do like part of that?
Who would the delegates be?
Yeah, do we like does the your cult decide that or the government?
No, it would be probably the governor and the state legislature would choose individuals from the state. You know, like say Bob Dole was still alive. You could send Bob Dole. You know.
Why are they worried about it? If they have
It's stupid. Well, that's what, see, when I went up there 3 years ago and sat in the meeting, there was somebody that came and spoke opposed to it, saying that you could have a runaway convention and they could come up with all these crazy ideas and change the, you know, the structure of the country by amending the Constitution. And, you know, it's not realistic that that would happen. Okay. So, yeah, 75%. This shows you how isolationist the American people are, okay? Roosevelt opposes it. Congress refuses it, okay? It's not going to happen, okay? But if anything else shows you how isolation we are, this is it, okay? And then Roosevelt, 1938, okay, so we're moving along here, getting toward the late 30s here, proposes a world conference to reduce arms and promote economic security. Okay, let's just say at this point in time, you're France. Okay? You got Mussolini on your southern border, who is in talks with Hitler at the time. Okay? You got Hitler violating the Treaty of Versailles. Now we know he has an air force, which he's not supposed to have. Okay? He's threatening his neighbors. He's written a book about his plan for world conquest. He's in negotiation with the Japanese. And president from across an ocean says to France, hey, Britain, France, let's get together and reduce our weapons.
That sounds very ideal.
Who is Roosevelt talking to? He's talking to the American people. You guys remember what happened in 1938 economically here?
Roosevelt recession.
The Roosevelt recession and the purge of the Democratic Party, of conservative Democrats. The Democrats are in trouble. He's trying to build up support with all these isolationists. So, yeah, it's just politics. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, of course the British are going to say, Roosevelt, no, we're not going to commit suicide for you. Okay? Now, this is the British Prime Minister at the time, Neville Chamberlain. Okay? And he gives a resounding no. And good for him. This will be the last nice thing I say about Neville Chamberlain. Now, there is a movie out on Netflix right now. I watched it about 3 weeks ago. Okay? We're going to be talking about the Munich Pact here shortly. When Hitler begins to go on the warpath. Okay? And it's all about Neville Chamberlain and this agreement that he makes with Hitler. Okay? And it's a pretty good movie. It's Munich something. The movie's called Munich something. Okay? Here we go. Hitler on the march. Yeah, that's the goose step. Yeah. It's actually used as a form of military discipline. It's very uncomfortable to march like that. Okay. Goose leg. Goose. Yeah, it's not. I mean, that hurts your feet. Okay. Now,
Even without shoes.
even with shoes on. So, what Hitler's doing is he's eyeing Austria. Okay, he's eyeing Czechoslovakia and Poland. All right, and the reason he's using here is that there are people of German ancestry living in these countries. And they need to be brought back into the fatherland. Okay? So that's what he's telling the world. Now, as he begins to amass his army on the southern border of Austria, which of course is his place of birth, the Austrians have been hit heavy with the Fifth Column. This is Hitler's home country. You have a lot of Germanic-speaking people in Austria. Now, I can take you to another movie that many of you have seen. The Sound of Music. Johnson?
Yes. I've never seen The Sound of Music.
It's like about what?
Gabby?
A million kids. Gabby.
I gotta go.
I gotta go. Have fun.
Okay, fine.
Good luck. The hills. Isn't one of the daughters named Heidi? No, that's a different.
There's a movie called Heidi.
Heidi that interrupted the Super Bowl. You didn't hear about that? One year, I think it was NBC, was airing the Super Bowl, and the movie Heidi came on, and they couldn't turn. Like people missed like 30 minutes of the game.
It's sad. It's a really sad movie.
Seriously.
Someone did.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
Heidi came on.
Like a dying old
No,
man.
Liesel, the eldest of the von Trapp family. Yep.
had a crush on a Nazi.
Oh, she had a little boyfriend, didn't she?
Yeah.
Her little boyfriend was Austrian. He's from Austria, yes? And he's part of what?
Nazi Party of Austria.
Yeah, he's part of the Nazi, like the Hitler Youth in Austria. Right? What's his name? Rolf. Rolf.
No, they're singing under the.
They're singing in the rain.
Oh.
So when he betrays them and places that exist part of it.
Does he betray the von Trapp?
Yeah.
Yes, he
Yeah.
does, yes.
He was
Yes. Yes.
Forgive us, mother. Oh, the cartoon.
And the father of the von Trapp, the patriarch of the family, is an admiral, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He whistled like, ooh.
Yeah. So, like,
They want him to go be a captain.
being a dad of a daughter, right? Kind of worry about who your daughter's dating, right? So he's an admiral in the Austrian Navy, and his eldest daughter is dating a Nazi. Right?
He's not blue eyes.
Oh. Now I really want to watch that movie.
Now,
You guys watched it when I told them? Yeah.
Austria does not militarily match up against the German army at this point. Okay? So as the Germans come across, there's no fighting. They will march in. There will be celebrations. Now you see this woman right here. This in most World War II textbooks, this photograph. Okay? If you read the caption to the picture, these look like tears of pain, sorrow, like you may see in Ukraine right now, yes? These are tears of joy.
Wow.
The Germans are here to save us. Okay? Guys, there was so much propaganda in Austria. They had so much support for the Nazis. And then when Hitler comes in, he's met with roses and swastikas and cheers. It's all choreographed. Okay? And the world is watching this. He's just taken over another country. He hasn't had to fire a shot. Okay? They will have a huge celebration in his hometown of Brunel. And millions will turn out. Okay? So his first conquer, quite easy. Yes? Which positions him well for his next. Now, Do you remember the Sudetenland? Let me go back to the map. Right here. So this region of Czechoslovakia was ceded to them from Germany. 3 million people of German ancestry live in the Sudetenland. Okay? Now, what lies between Germany and the Sudetenland are the Alps, the mountain range, the Alps. The Czechs want to fight, like the Ukrainians. They're not giving up. The Czechs want to fight. Inside the Sudetenland, okay, so let me draw a map. Okay, inside the Sudetenland here, something called the Skoda Works, which is the second largest munitions factory in Europe. You have the mountains here that separate the two. So the Czechs, well armed, with a barrier in the Alps, want to fight. They're expecting help. They're the only real democracy east of the Rhine River. So you would assume the other democracies of Europe would come to their defense. Or maybe even Russia would come to their defense. Like Russia helped the Spanish people. Russia needs that warm water port that they're fighting over right now. And Czechoslovakia is in that region of Europe, southeastern part of Europe, that could affect his access to the Black Sea, possibly down the road. So the Czechs start calling upon these democracies to help. Oh, they're going to get help. Just not the help they wanted. So, pictured on the bottom left there, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and Herr Hitler. Chamberlain and the French Premier, Galibier, okay, are going to meet with Hitler and Mussolini. Okay? And I will discuss that with you tomorrow. Yes, sir. Okay.